again, my name is Dotie Joseph, Dotie Joseph, okay? Thank you again for taking the time to come out tonight. I know there are lots of things you could be doing with your time, so I appreciate you coming to support, but more importantly, finding out what's going on in your community, because it's important when we get engaged, right? For those who don't know me, I'm going to go ahead and do a quick introduction, then I'm going to talk about some of the bills that we have that I personally have sponsored, thank you, as well as some bills that as a caucus we're going to be pushing, and then some of the challenging bills that we're going to be fighting against, okay? And then at the end we'll have an opportunity for you to get engaged, and we're going to take some questions. Does that sound fair to everybody? What's up? Okay, so for those who don't know me, as I said, my name is Dotie Joseph, born in Haiti, raised right here all throughout this district, studied hard. I am a proud product of Miami-Dade public schools, went on to graduate from Yale University and Georgetown law. While I was at Yale, I had the opportunity to found our Haitian Student Alliance at Yale. And people were like, yo, y'all had enough Haitians over there? And the answer is yes. Between the graduate and professional schools, we had a nice little club going. While I was at Yale, I also had the opportunity to work with Congressman Peter Deutsch in his district office, and he liked me so much he invited me to go work for him in Washington, D.C. When I got to D.C., I decided I did not want to get involved in politics. Go figure. I was like, I don't like how the sausage is made, I don't even know what's in the bills, the lobbyist is writing stuff, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, deuces to politics. Then, rewind to high school, I interned at the Miami-Dade Public Defender's Office, and I decided I didn't want to be a lawyer. I did not like the way our criminal justice system operated. We had people that I thought needed just some medical attention that were going to jail. Now, the response is different with the opioid epidemic, and we're not going to talk about why, but there is something there, and I did not want to be involved in the system at all. Fast forward, I graduate from college, and I had the opportunity to work with President Carter in Atlanta at the Carter Center, doing democracy development work in Latin America, the Caribbean, and West Africa. And I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to be a track 2 diplomat. I want to be one of those people that exists behind the scenes. You never need to know I exist, but I just make sure that we continue to have world peace. With that in mind, I did a program in The Hague in mediation and conflict resolution. While I was there, we had world leaders come in from all around the world talking about their experiences. And there was one particular speaker that stood out to me, and it was General Dallaire. General Dallaire, for those who don't know, was the general in charge of the UN troops, the United Nations troops, during the Rwandan genocide. And he talked about his frustrations with all the bureaucracy, knowing that these people were being killed and him not having the authority to do anything about it. Now, I studied the Rwandan genocide in school, and I know that it was the Tutsis who themselves decided to protect themselves from the massacre, which ended the whole thing. Because if you're waiting for somebody else to come in for the cavalry, you would have been out of luck. Right? And that's how it is in our community. I recognize where we fit in the scheme of things. I recognize where we fit in the scheme of the larger Democratic Party, not talking about our team here. But sometimes we are neglected, so we need to do for ourselves. So this is the beginning of us doing for ourselves. We know our needs better than anybody else. So I'm here to make sure that our voices are amplified and we take care of business. Some of the stuff is going to happen through legislation. We're going to get into that. But some of this stuff is just going to be us rolling up our sleeves and doing things as a community. Do y'all agree with that? Yeah. All right. So, some of the bills that I have sponsored so far. The first one is a ceremonial resolution to pass the ERA. For those who don't know, that would amend the U.S. Constitution to declare that men are equal to women. Who would have thought that that was even a thing? And we just need one more state to do it, just one. Virginia just tried and passed one house, but it failed in the other. So now Florida has a shot. This is one of those things that really should not be partisan, but for whatever reason it tends to be. We're still going to try, right? That's going to be one of our priorities to see if we can pass the ERA. The second thing I filed is, so everywhere in the developed world, you have something very simple called paid family leave. So when you give birth, you have some time to go take care of your child, man, woman, whatever. But you have a little time and you get paid in the process. That's one of the bills that I filed for us. We can't control what's happening at Congress right now, but here in Florida, I'm trying to see if we can get some paid family leave just for 6 months, okay? The third thing I filed is equal pay for women. And it's just like the Lilly Ledbetter Act, but here in Florida. So it requires disclosure of income, because what happens is you don't know that this person's making this much and you're making that much, and they have rules to preclude you from talking about it. So we want to take those gag orders off so you guys can talk about stuff and organize and be more effective, because otherwise you cannot speak up against injustice if there is no transparency. Does that make sense? All right. See, it makes sense to y'all. I don't know about my colleagues in Tallahassee. We're going to try. The fourth bill that I filed is one that would allow victims of domestic violence to qualify for unemployment compensation benefits if they have to leave their job because of a domestic violence situation. Several states have it. Right now we don't, and I'm trying to make sure that we're one of them. The last bill that I filed, we have one more that we're deciding on what it's going to be, but the last one that I filed is close to home, and that has to do with just racial disparities and healthcare. So whether we're talking about racial disparities, disparities based on gender, disparities based on disability, it's going to require AHCA, the Agency for Healthcare Administration, to just collect data based on race and age. They're doing some of this right now, but it's not accessible. So what we're going to do is collect the data and make it accessible, so then we can go back and track those racial disparities, those gender disparities, so we can do something about it. It makes absolutely no sense that Black women have the absolute worst outcomes in medical care in this day and age. So we need to start talking about it, and this legislation was set up so we can do something about it. A couple of other ones that we're one more that I'm filing is a bill that would allow immigrants who do not necessarily have citizenship to apply for a driver's license. That used to be the case before. It's not right now, so we're trying to bring it back to where it was and specifically allow certain foreign documentation to qualify. And that's something that hits home in the community, because you know when we're driving out here in these streets, it's better that the person at least knows the rules of the road and is licensed, because they're going to be driving anyway, right? Okay, well, I'm just going to leave that right there. Y'all already know that. Okay. Some other bills that we're pushing for in general that aren't necessarily my direct bills, for those who don't know, on the Senate side, you get unlimited bills. On the House side, we only get 6. So I have to pick my bullets carefully. This one is the one that I'm co-sponsoring, and it's called the Dignity for Women Act. So what that does is it allows women, incarcerated women, to have access to just basic medical supplies. So things like things that they need for their menstruation, and make sure that men cannot strip search them, right? Things that you think should be happening already, but don't, because they have to pay for it. And we've heard terrible stories of women and the indignities that they've had to endure because of it. So that's one of the bills that we're getting behind. In addition to that, we're pushing to make sure that they implement Amendment 4. The people have spoken, and once you have done your time, we want to make sure that you're fully integrated back into society. Yep. Including the right to vote. So we're watching the games that are being played and making sure that we're maneuvering accordingly, but we want to make sure that that is being taken care of. Another bill that we're going to be supporting in general is raising teacher pay. Yes. We want to make sure that teachers are getting paid at least $50,000 a year. In Miami-Dade County, we have to do additional things. Now, separate and apart from the Democratic caucus, we have the Miami-Dade delegation. And we're focusing a lot on education this year. The Miami-Dade delegation is going to be working to increase the DCL. There's a formula that's used to dictate how much of the money that each state puts into the pot for education funds and how much you get back. Right now, Miami-Dade County puts in some of the highest rates and gets some of the lowest returns. Now, a lot of that is due to some political negotiations that took back in the day. We're not going to point any fingers. Right now, we're just trying to fix it, okay? Lastly, another thing that we're focusing on as a delegation is making sure that voting is simple and easy for everybody. We saw during the last election cycle all the problems with the signatures and the voting machines. And we have former Senator Thompson, now Representative Thompson, who has been tasked by Leader McGee to focus on just that issue. And we're working together as an entire caucus to see if we can fix that. Now, so that's the good stuff. Y'all ready for the bad stuff? Okay, so you know we have some bad stuff coming. Some bad stuff that's coming is we have one bill there that is supposedly supposed to protect Confederate monuments in the state of Florida, filed by a gentleman of color. I'll just leave that right there and let y'all marinate on that one. The other one we have that we're going to be fighting against is anti-immigrant legislation that they have to challenge sanctuary cities, which is a problem for us. We already saw the implementation of that in Miami-Dade County with Mayor Jimenez, and we want to make sure we do our part so that this is not implemented on the statewide level. And lastly, we're going to be fighting legislation in general that's directed at taking away home rule. I know the local elected officials will appreciate that, and coming from my background as a former assistant deputy and interim city attorney, I know those situations all too well. It's better to manage some things locally. Some things need to be addressed at the state level, but not everything. So we need to make sure that we're pushing back with these power grabs, because you know what's happening, right? They see the power shifts changing and they're trying to plan ahead. Same thing happened at the state level. Whenever they see where the power shift is going, that's where they attack to try to do those power grabs. But we're here for that fight, all right? Last thing I'll mention is some of the interesting things that the new governor has been doing. On the plus side, he has decided he's going to honor the will of the people as it pertains to marijuana. And I don't know if you guys remember the legislation that we approved, the referendum that went through. So he's saying he's going to implement the will of the people. That's a good sign. We'll see what that actually looks like. He has done some positive things as it relates to the environment, or at least said he's going to do some positive things, and I'm taking him on his word. He has appointed our first ever Jewish American on the Florida Supreme Court, right? That's a good thing in light of the campaign. Unfortunately, the flip side of that is this will be the first time in over 30 years that we will not have an African American on the Florida Supreme Court. And that hurts my heart. And I'm just gonna have to move on because, yeah. But the governor has a lot of hope. He recently pardoned the Groveland Four. I don't know if people know much about that yet. And I'm going to invite Representative DeBose up here because we're going to transition into question and answers. Come on. And I'm going to invite Representative McGee, Leader McGee. And there are some folks who have note cards around. If you have questions, we're going to take some brief questions relating to any of the things that we talked about so far. And I'm going to have him talk a little bit more about the Groveland Four if you guys don't know about that situation. But I will say this. The legislature issued an apology to the families last session. Our prior governor should have been the one to issue a pardon, but he didn't. But this governor did, and that counts. So.
Thank you, Representative Joseph. She's absolutely correct in regards to the Groveland Four. Just to give you a little background if you're not familiar. So back in 1949, a white woman falsely accused 4 young black males of rape. And in fact, her name's Norma Paget. So what happened was Charles Greenlee, he was 16 years old, and he came to Groveland, Florida, that's near Orlando, because his daughter, Carol Greenlee, his girlfriend was pregnant with her, so he was doing the right and honorable thing, was to go to Groveland to get a job, to have money to support his child. Interesting enough, before he got to where he was going, miles out of where the incident was alleged to happen, he was arrested. Back then, it wasn't uncommon for black males to be arrested, to be perceived in the wrong location. And then the other two, Sam Shepard, they lived next door to the Pagets, and kind of to set the mood. A couple of the families were prominent black families. They owned land. The father had all this swamp land that he had cultivated and made it productive, and the pageant family wanted it. And so this was kind of a constant battle. And then the sheriff, Judge Willis McCall, went after these men. She made this false claim. One of them, Ernest Thomas, took off. He didn't want to be arrested. And so they got the sheriff, the deputies, the Ku Klux Klan, and they went after him. And when they found him, he was dead. His body was riddled with over 100 bullets. And so from that point, and I'm glad to see the NAACP here, and I'll give a shout out, but, you want to bring one? Okay, and so at the time, the NAACP called in Thurgood Marshall before he went to Supreme Court. They got a retrial, and on the way of transporting two of the prisoners, Willis McCall pulled over. They were handcuffed together, and he said he was having car trouble, and he shot him in the head. But God is always to find the author of every story, and so Sam Shepard pretended to be dead. He lived to tell the story. So I'm trying to run through this really quickly. It's a really big story. At the end of the day, FBI, everything just laid out that all of it was fabricated, it was a lie. In fact, the alleged victim was examined. The doctor, no trauma, no evidence. They actually had a picture of her the next day. She was at this diner or whatever, fully dressed, smiling, and her story was they raped her, took the clothes, and made her. So anyway, at the end of the day, what happened to the Groveland Four is just one example of many stories, maybe hundreds that happened throughout the state and thousands throughout the country. So the family wanted to have this pardon for these four young black men, and they went to the governor. He said no. He passed the buck to Pam Bundy. I don't want your attorney general to get off the hook easily either, and she took no action. So then it came through the legislative body, and I'll be honest with you, I mean, it was a glorious day when we were able to, as the state of Florida, apologize on this bill, but it was no easy task, and there was actual pushback, but we got it done. But that was only part of the story. And so the governor or anyone from the cabinet could have used, it was within their jurisdiction to bring this up and give this pardon, and they refused to, and they would not. And so the new governor came in, and in the first week, and I'll give credit where credit is due, he pardoned these four young men. And it speaks volumes, I think, because, like I said, unfortunately, Groveland 4 was more of an everyday occurrence back then. So I probably took too much time. I get a little emotional about this one. I spend a lot of time with it. And so that's pretty much what happened with Groveland 4. So I'll give the governor definitely credit there. That was a big one for us. And so, Groveland.
And I want you to give him another round of applause because he sponsored the legislation that led to this policy. All right, so again, if you have a question, just raise your hand. They'll get you a note card. If you don't, that's no problem, but raise your hand and get note cards. In the meantime, I'm going to invite the president of the NAACP up, my good friend, Mr. Reuben Roberts. And what I want him to do, because we're in this fight together, right? And not just because I'm a longtime member of the NAACP and used to be political action chair while I was in college, and a current member still, and always volunteer. But I want him to know, I want you guys to know some of the things that they're doing. If you want to get involved with the NAACP, and also just to get the contact information if there's something you ever want to report.
Say to you that the first time Dotie and I met. Okay, Donnie, okay, Donnie. Thank you so much, Donnie. All right. The first time we met was right here. And guess what we were doing? We were preparing applications for TPS for those who needed to get their extensions. This is our first meeting, and she shared with me that she wanted to be involved with our local chapter, and she also shared with me that she was running for office at the time. So we met doing service. I wanted you to know that the NAACP, the Miami-Dade branch, but the NAACP overall is the oldest and boldest civil rights organization. What you just heard about Groveland and other incidents that's happening, you look through the news and you see all the racial injustice and insensitivity. not only with African Americans, with Jewish, with all types of people. We just had an incident last night that was reported. I don't know what the status is of an actor that was bashed because of his sexuality and treated unfairly. And his race. So it's important for you all to be involved in an organization that's going to go out and fight for your rights. And that's what we do on a daily basis. How many of you all, by show of hands, are a member of the NAACP? Excellent. Put your hands down. Those of you who did not raise your hands, you are already members. You just have not paid your dues. All right? So we want you to go online and make sure you pay your dues. Make sure you become a part of the Miami-Dade branch of the NAACP. You can find out information about our meetings. You can find out our location. All you have to do is Google Miami-Dade branch NAACP. And if you have any issues where there's a civil rights complaint, you can dial this number. You have your pens available. 1-877-NAACP-09. 1-877-NAACP-09. I want us to stand together. And it's very important today. There is so much that's going on where folks who have racial differences are feeling emboldened. You can't even go to your place of worship and worship the peace without fear of being shot, murdered. And that's not what America is all about. America is greater than that. We are greater than that. So I encourage you all again to be involved, and I thank you very much, Dotie, for allowing me to come up and share a few words. And the other thing I want you to see, I want you to look at this. I want you to look at this because this is important during election time. We are all one.
That's right.
Doesn't matter where you came from. If you came from Haiti, if you come from Georgia, if you come from South Dade, if you come from Broward County, you hear the term African American, but we are all one people. And we need to stay together and work together and support each other like they're doing tonight, so that we can make a change in our community. Don't miss what you're seeing up here. This is definitely something that's happening. This man just got off the plane because he was invited by Doc. Just got off the plane, been up since 4:30 this morning. He's in Broward, he got to put his kids to bed, but he's here. And so I want you to remember the importance of that. We can accomplish a lot more when we stick together. Thank you all, guys.
I just want to add to what was said by Ruben with the NAACP, and I encourage you not to take it lightly. When he said we are one, you know, the NAACP was started with the Niagara movement with both white and black people. And so the importance of the NAACP being as one is still very important to this day. And I always encourage everyone, even if you don't have the time, become a member. And my family, we're all life members, including my 5-year-old son. So make sure you become.
Bring up questions. In the meantime, I wanted to have Madame Marlene Bastien please stand. So when we talk about organizations that are doing things in our community, this woman and I have, this potomitan, for those who understand, and I have worked tirelessly in our community, whether it's when I was president of the Haitian Lawyers Association or not president of the Haitian Lawyers Association, because those are issues that don't just go away. Whether we're talking about TPS, whether we're talking about DACA, whether we're talking about Little Haiti, all of these issues impact our community. And if we don't understand that and fight for each other, because this is one of, and I'm proud that this is one of the most culturally and economically diverse districts in the entire state of Florida. And I'm tired of people representing a particular section. Everybody in the community needs to feel represented and know that they matter and know that their vote counts and that we care. So, she does a lot of amazing work. If you haven't already, please follow her on, it's FAMN, is it just FAMNN? FANM on Facebook so you can see all of the amazing things that they continue to do. And speaking of social media, why don't y'all whip out your phones? Come on, we're gonna do some little homework. Whip out your phones. If you're on Instagram or Facebook, please like and follow Dotie, D-O-T-I-E, last name Joseph, and Rep DuBose, D-O-D-U-B-O-S-E. Just Keone McGee, K-I-O-N-N-E, McGee, M-C-G-H-E-E. All right, so just, like, support, share. That way you can stay informed about what's going on and share the information with people. Now, we have a question. I cannot stress the importance of us fighting for each other. I glossed over a lot of this stuff, but when I was in law school, I would do two kinds of things. I didn't go to any of those fancy firms that make a lot of money. I would do something domestic and something international. Domestically, I worked with the National Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, making sure that our rights to vote were protected. Internationally, that same summer, I worked with the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in Egypt, helping to resettle over 120 Sudanese refugees. The next summer, I split it between the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under the Law and the Refugee Law Project in Uganda. And I'm telling you, it's the same story. When you see somebody leave everything that they've known, their entire family, their friends, their livelihood, to come to a different country, know that something at home is not right. And it's the same immigrant story. Sometimes it's a refugee story, sometimes it doesn't meet those legal qualifications. But something is wrong. And back then, the United States used to be the example of how to get it right. Under the current administration, I regret to inform you that you already know, I don't need to inform you, that we are no longer the example. And it breaks my heart. But it doesn't have to stay that way. Every day is a new day for us to stay engaged and re-engage and fight back. So now we're going to try to answer this question.
So the question we have, the question is an insurance question, and we're going to try to get to it. It says, what can be done about property insurance companies that charge homeowners, for instance, for insurance that have 5% deductible but Schedule B coverage? When it's capped at $10,000 and a homeowner can never get relief if they file a claim. The easiest thing to do is, whoever wrote this question, it's an insurance question. It is a contractual question. The question is, what is it that your policy lays out? Who did you speak with who gave you this policy? Secondly, the second part of this question appears to deal with your belief that there is some sort of fraud or misguidance that was delivered to you or being done to you based upon this policy. What we can do is, and I'll make sure that Dotie staff get with you too, is that we can put you in contact with the insurance advocate who will actually deal with this question, because this is a legitimate question. This is a question that gets pretty much asked a lot everywhere we go. What to do when you file a claim and you pull out the insurance company that's not being forthcoming with you. What is your office number?
Our office number is
850-717-5108. And the reason why you want to call the 850 number is because that is the Tallahassee office. And in the Tallahassee office, we can get direct to the consumer advocate who we can get on the phone with you and deal with you as it relates to insurance matters. But this is a legitimate question. This is a question of true concern, and make no mistake about it, property insurance is a legitimate issue in the state of Florida considering where we're living. Next question.
So the next question is an inquiry about Miami-Dade Public Schools. Miami-Dade Public Schools oversees a $5 billion budget, and it's encouraging to hear that we may get more funding to support teachers, schools, and children, but the achievement gap in District 1 is unacceptable. Can you share how we intend to ensure these new funds support our schools? So there are lots of different new funds that are going on right now. You have the basic funds that are already there. You have the new funds that just came out from the referendum that was just passed because Tallahassee dropped the ball. And not necessarily these guys, they were fighting a good fight. Unlike my predecessor whose seat I took over, who voted with them on that, but we're not gonna go there right now. But my point is, when Tallahassee dropped the ball, Miami-Dade picked up the ball to try to address some of those issues. That funding is still not enough, which is why we're fighting for teacher pay. Now, as far as the achievement gap goes, the Miami-Dade delegation has been working closely with the Miami-Dade Public School Board, as well as those representing this district. So most of this district is going to be Dr. Stephen Gallen. In addition, we have a little bit with Dr. Dorothy Bendrafman-Nagal. We have been talking to them as well as the school board about different things that need to be implemented. One of the things I did mention, because in addition to the full-fledged bills, there are lots of amendments that we can pass as well. So one of the amendments that I plan to propose through committee is going to be for wraparound services. Right now, certain charter schools get a little bit of funding for wraparound services. But I know if wraparound services are provided to more schools, including the public schools, the traditional public schools, then we can alleviate some of the stressors that impair us getting to where we want to be with the achievement gap. In addition, we're looking at different standards. We're looking at best practices. I happen to serve on the K-12 Education Innovation Subcommittee. And we're looking specifically at different things that we can do and meeting with lots of school administrators to see what has worked in different counties and what can be implemented here. So we're actively looking at ways to close that achievement gap, but some of that gap has nothing to do with what's actually happening in the school, and it has everything to do with what's happening in the community around that student.
All right, this question is a comment on top of it. Amazing town hall, I agree with that. Rev Joseph's doing an amazing job. So there's a couple of questions on here, really good questions. First one, are there any bills as it relates to guns? Yes, absolutely. There will always be bills related to guns every session. Unfortunately, even in light of everything that's happened, and we're approaching a year anniversary of what happened at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, the NRA has a real everyday presence in our politics, especially in Tallahassee. But I will tell you that as it relates to the NRA, they have no firepower here. Second part is guns on campus. That bill has been filed again. We fight that bill every year. I think it's just ridiculous, right? So I call her my daughter niece because my wife and I have raised her since she was about 5, and her freshman year at Florida State, she was in the library when the gunman came in, and she was traumatized. We got her through that, but when they propose these bills, I think they're pulling out of the air because, for example, they'll put something in there, you can carry a gun on campus if you're 21. Well, I remember being 21, I remember being in college, and I didn't quite think things out, and people are high-headed and in a temper, and if you and your roommate get into an argument and one is older than the other and one has a gun, I mean, there's just so many things, and I have young kids, and you know, they say the mind doesn't totally develop until it's 25, so I'm gonna give you a gun on campus to run around with a bunch of your friends. I think it's absolutely ridiculous.
One of our friends, Representative Marguerite, has filed legislation to require universal background checks, which takes away a lot of the loopholes that currently exist. That is a bill that has been filed on both sides. So we're probably going to be pushing that bill as well. One of the things, again, like I told you, not everything's going to be legislation. But one of the things that we're looking to try to do is there has been some funds set for the part of the bill that allowed, the one that passed after the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas 726, it allowed funding for schools who wanted to train their teachers with guns and all of that stuff. What we want to do, the Guardian amendment, for the Guardian program, what we want to do is see we can use some of those funds. Like in Miami-Dade County, we have opted to opt out of that program so we don't arm our teachers, which is a good thing. That being said, we wanted to see if we can take some of those untapped funds to use them to fund school resource officers of people who are trained to be able to do that, but also trained to deal with our kids in a way that mitigates any racial impacts. So that's some of the things that we're looking at on that front.
Great question here is about our Florida retirement system, and are there going to be any bills pushed to go after the FRS? That's the question. The short answer is always. Whenever there's a pot of money that protects our future, you can always rest assured that there's going to be people out there who think we can actually use those monies to fill holes in the budget. So the short answer is yes. But then again, like every year, we push back, we fight, and I do not believe for a second that they're going to cease filing another bill this time in 2019. So short answer is yes, they're going to go after the FRS, but rest assured we're going to fight and we'll bring it back to resolve.
One of the questions is what can we do to address gun violence in our community? And there are lots of things that we can do, but I will tell you this. There's another bill that we're looking at that was filed by Representative Reverend Jones on the House side and Senator Oscar Brannon on the Senate side that is going to be looking at dealing with stand your ground laws. Now, we know we can't hardcore fully repeal it right now, but we're looking at different things that we can do to address those issues. There's another bill that is by, I think, Senator Pizzo, and I forget who's on the House side, that's looking at ways specifically to address gun violence with the youth. And as those develop, we're going to continue to let you know about what's going on. Like I said, follow us, Facebook, Instagram, because I'm going to keep you informed. And when the time comes to get your input on things, you will have a voice. So just make sure you're paying attention as we go forward. And I think we have time for one last question. Want to just do this one?
Yeah, no. And before she leaves, I just want to recognize a friend of mine, Senator Daphne Campbell. Have a great evening again. Just love that woman.
All right, so the final question that we'll address is, what can the community do to support us while we're in Tallahassee? I think that's a very key question, and I think what we need to understand is that we're in this together. What you guys do is exactly what you're doing here. If you can, make your way to Tallahassee. Either do it virtually or physically, but you have to engage, continue to agitate. And the reason why I say that's very important, last year, when those young folks showed up to Tallahassee and they were relentless and they would not stop, that's what made the difference. That's what made us get in the posture to try and pass something. But for the community not standing up and wouldn't take no for an answer, we would not have gotten the bill that we got. And if you just think back historically, that's how things have changed. So I'm going to allow my colleagues to address that as well. But I got to tell you, from my standpoint, when you all come to Tallahassee, you put a face on the bill, you put a face on the issue, and when we're making our decisions, it take it from being something that's written to something that's real life. So stay engaged and get other folks to be engaged, and that's how you support and help us.
And look, take a page from our friend, our pastor, Gary Johnson, right? Gary walks through the halls of Tallahassee. He doesn't come by himself. He comes with a caravan of people. And the one thing you notice when you see him in Tallahassee, he has at least 30 to 40, sometimes 50 people, pastors, with him. And you know what? Legislators listen. You know why? Because they know with the one phone call, this brother can make or break their election. And that's where you have to come in and realize how powerful you are also. He has mastered the process. So if you need to understand how Tallahassee works, the advocacy portion of it, speak to him. He's an easygoing brother who will explain to you the process. I've seen this brother pack buses, take an 8-hour trip to Tallahassee just to ensure that our rights are protected. And we're going to close out, but considering this is Rev. Joseph's first town hall, it is an honor and privilege that Rev. DeVos and I ask a favor of you. We need to memorialize this moment, right? And if it's okay with you, we would like to take a photo with all of you so that she can put this on her wall to remind herself of this moment. So if you can come up here, it would be awesome. And we'll stand with you and show that the community is with Dotie. And thank you all for coming out. I appreciate it.
Looks like this. Everybody?